Boom shakalaka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your boy Chris Schul, aka the Esoteric Noetic, aka the Chocolate Nubian. So, brother, sure a lot of the people on the streets of Melbourne right now must be looking at me thinking I am crazy, but yes, I am. I am crazy. You know, there was a time when crazy was associated with brilliance, courage. The misfits, they're the ones that have changed the world. Not the ones that do as they're told, try to appear as if they're normal and be on team. In hope that they can just get along and not be accosted by any of the popo. No, ladies and gentlemen, it's important to beat to the rhythm of your own heart. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking away so people do not feel insecure around you. You were born to manifest the glory of God, to manifest your individuality, to strive to be the best that you can be, unwaveringly. In any event, be sure to like this video, subscribe, click on the bell, tell your friends, tell your momos, drop us the comments, let us know what it is. Oh! So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been almost 3 years, even longer, of this New World Order agenda. And it's funny, some time ago, this entire concept of the New World Order used to be a conspiracy theory. When people like Alex Jones would speak about the Bilderberg Group, the media denied this. The media called him a conspiracy theorist, which of course they still do. When people like Alex Jones would speak about many things which have come to light, of course we all thought this was in the realm of, well, many of the thought this was all built of air and imagination. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen, 2022. The world is very different now, for we live in a society where essentially the overwhelming majority of governments around the world do not believe in any idea of individual unalienable rights. We are now at a point where governments can decide whether or not they honor your rights. I mean, essentially, we have Emergency Authorization Use Acts, we have National Defense Authorization Acts, and we have all of these concessions within constitutions, within the law, within the legalese system, rather, that allow governments to forcibly boom shakalaka people, keep people in their homes. I mean, essentially, you do not have any human rights. And for those that don't understand the distinction between actual human rights and privileges in this leftist worldview that you are entitled to prevent people from living their lives because you're scared, well, Momo, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about unalienable human rights. Freedom from aggression, freedom to do as you will without being impeded by tyrannical governments, provided you are not directly harming anyone in the process. And over the last few years, we've all seen that a lot of the times it's not even the laws that are at the heart of the problem. It's the fact that so many people, regardless of what we have written into the Constitution, are so willing to incite governments, incite their rulers to violate the rights of individuals. So we very much do not have human rights in this day and age, ladies and gentlemen. If you were someone that believes in mandates that allow coercive governments to have businesses, individuals forcibly wear a mask over their face, forcibly be coerced to undergo experimental boom shakalakas and so forth, well, there's no other word for it. It's wrong, it is illegal, and it's unlawful. Well, of course, legality is nothing other than the will of the group, often manifested in this color of law, not the actual law, the natural law, but nonetheless That's the world that we live in. The legalese system has hijacked the actual natural law and allows governments to sacrifice individual rights. But in any event, that's not what I wanted to talk about in this video. I wanted to talk about how just recently we have seen many figures, many public figures like Alex Jones being banned from social media. David Icke is another one. There are so many to name. But I would say the first person that we have seen this happen to on a large scale was Alex Jones, the first person in history to be banned from all social media. And now it's just a thing, right? Just like taxation was a one-off thing and then it became the rule. Just like lockdowns was a one-off thing, right? Remember 2 weeks to flatten the curve? And now it's become a rule. Just like mandatory boom shakalakas, right? We're just going to be a one-off thing. An emergency authorization use. Yes, we understand it violates your human rights. We understand that it's a violation of the Nuremberg Code, but it's a one-off thing. And voila, here we have it. It is the norm now where people get taken off of these social media platforms. And granted, in many of the instances, it's the right of these companies to do so. But it's also even within the law now, where many companies, many governments are essentially punishing individuals against their rights, against contracts, for expressing their opinion in regards to what's going on in reality. Now, recently, David Icke was banned not from just a country, ladies and gentlemen, he was banned from essentially a continent. David Icke was recently banned from 26 Schengen countries. Why? Because he wanted to attend a peace rally that had been organized beforehand to speak about, you guessed it, tyrannical governments. And I guess he made the mistake of doing it at the home of the conspiracy world, right? Where a lot of this stuff hatched. Home of the Bilderberg Group, the Netherlands, Amsterdam, around The Hague. This is where essentially we saw the Bilderberg Group being formed. And Alex Jones tried to expose what was going on, what these people were up to. This organization headed by Mr. Schwab. And now, of course, they've taken on a different mantle under the World Economic Forum that's trying to implement their agenda under this Great Reset program. But in any event, I digress. So Alex Jones was banned from 26 Schengen countries, and the list has been growing, purely because he wanted to come and speak in regards to governments that are violating your individual rights. Now, you might be wondering what the justification was by the Dutch Justice Minister for restricting David Icke's entry into the country. Well, Mr. Dylan Yezegov Zagurius, the Dutch Justice Minister, how ridiculous that someone like that can have any title associated with justice, has decided to restrict David Icke's entry on the grounds that, well, as you'd imagine, it's for safety. We felt as if David Icke coming to this protest and speaking about, well, tyrannical governments like ours is going to jeopardize the freedom of this country. And this is the kind of language these tyrants always use. So essentially, we had a situation where there was a rally, protest, that was set to go forth, and another group, a leftist group, had made plans to go and protest against the protest that was taking place. And as the tyrants thought that that might be an issue, they decided to ban David Icke from coming to the country. And the interesting thing is, this is the kind of justification that is commonly used in the world at the moment by police. Anytime someone is essentially standing up for their liberty, wants to protest, wants to express that they don't like being violated, being accosted, and they express this within their freedom of movement or within a protest, typically what we see is, because these police officers believe that there's going to be an issue, some kind of altercation as such, they restrict people's ability to do that. And this has become the norm. This is the same kind of thinking we used to implement the lockdowns. Well, we see that there might be an ongoing issue, so we're going to violate you. And a lot of people keep on thinking that this behavior is justified. Whether it's a government or an individual, you don't have the right to violate someone because you're scared of what might happen. And this is the heart of the problem. A lot of people speak about how the last 3 years has been about misinformation, censorship, which it has. That it's been about an agenda, which it has. But fundamentally, at the heart of this, at the heart of the freedom movement, it is about rights. It's about human rights. It's about governments and people, individuals, essentially wanting to tramp on the rights of others because they're scared about what might happen. And we've been seeing this manifest itself in many different ways, but over the last 3 years, it has exponentially grown. I mean, even in 2019, David Icke was prevented from coming into Australia, convict land, with the same rationale that he would be a threat to the public health and safety of the country. So even though he had a book tour, speak in Australia, the Australian government essentially decided to prevent him from coming into the country. And this is where things seem to be headed. You have the wrong opinions, you get blocked from social media. Your bank accounts get taken down. And on top of that, we won't allow you to leave the country. We won't allow you to enter countries, and we'll have you locked in your homes. And society is moving in this direction where every facet of your life is going to be controlled by the controllers, by those that don't believe in freedom. And you know, there are many ways of classifying the groups of people and what they're about and so forth. You know, whether they are Christians or whether they are atheists, whether they are feminists or conservatives or whatnot. It's irrelevant. But the most important way of looking at this is those that want to control you, restrict your freedoms, restrict your unalienable rights. And those that believe in freedom. Freedom takes courage, ladies and gentlemen. Freedom takes respect. And a lot of people have this mindset that ultimately we need to focus on creating peace and coming together. And I absolutely respect that, 100%. But the thing a lot of people fail to realize is this cannot be achieved without respecting basic human rights. And the last few years have shown that more than anything, ladies and gentlemen. It's become very evident that the vast majority of people do not actually respect freedom, don't actually respect human rights. And granted, we have had people that have been inciting violence, inciting these mandates, inciting these lockdowns, inciting experimental boom shakalakas through coercive measures by governments and so forth, which is inherently wrong. Another great issue is that so many people seem to be passive in not speaking their mind against the tyranny. They make arguments like, I have my life to focus on, which you do. I have to focus on my family, my own goals, my own career, which you do. I have said this, ladies and gentlemen, that as long as we continue to look away from the injustices of the world, as long as we continue to focus on doing what is comfortable as opposed to standing up against tyranny, as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, the day we stay silent about things that matter is the day we see that spiritual death. I paraphrase. But essentially, when you look the other way and you don't speak against the injustices and you see them amount and amount, the snowball slowly forms. A day will come when your children's children will look upon you and ask you, why did you not do more in order to stand against this tyranny that we are seeing? And this is where undoubtedly, things look to be headed. More and more violations of your freedoms based off of, in quotation, the science. I smell climate lockdowns coming ahead. I smell technologies being implemented that will restrict people's ability to even think anything that is considered against the narrative. We are seeing this storm of fascism and dictatorship and tyranny, and big companies emerge into this totalitarian technocracy. And unless, of course, we have the courage to stand against the tyranny, to actually speak our minds, to do what we can in our own individual way by being the change we want to see in the world, we will see that slow spiritual death. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, good men do not acquiesce to tyranny. It is not good enough to merely not do evil things, but to be truly someone that can call themselves a man of virtue, you have to be willing to stand against things that are inherently wrong, regardless of whether or not the society deems them as being right or wrong. To beat to the rhythm of your own heart, to stand in your satya agraha, your truth force, your light, your sovereignty, your will, and manifest your Christ consciousness. Ladies and gentlemen, freaks and geeks, brothers and sisters around the world, remember there are three things that cannot remain hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the wisdomatic truth bombs of the chocolate Nubian soul brother. Boom shakalaka. Remember to like this video, send this to a stranger, and check us out on the Patreon if you want to support us. Or you can check us out on the TikTok if you want to see me serenading the ladies. Peace!
Like this notion of liberty, for example. What is liberty?
And I think that concept of the will is very important.
What the? Who says you can't build muscle in a vegan diet? What's it like being a hottie in the vegan community?
Bitcoin will not work as digital gold.
Engineering, technology, these arts of humanity, they are magic.
Everyone deserves the same chance, the same treatment, the same respect.
History's littered with war. History's littered with body scar, trying to settle the score to maintain an archaic